Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to sync a Google Sheet from Airtable to the Google Sheet. So if something's created in Airtable, it's created in the Google Sheet. Something is updated in Airtable, it is updated in the Google Sheet and doesn't create multiple records every time you update something. And I'm going to show you how to do this with Airtable and most likely Zapier. So I'll show you what you can and cannot do with the Airtable connection and where it falls off versus what you can do as of March 12th, 2022 with those connections. So if you haven't met me before, my name is Ben Green. I'm the owner of optimizeis, and what we do is we help business owners implement systems like these so they can work on the higher level tasks in their business and scale to 7 or 8 figures a year. So if you are interested, you can just go down in the description, request a consultation with me or someone on my team. But without further ado, we'll jump right into the video. So this right here is what we have in Airtable, and I just want to create this table to be synced as an example to a Google Sheet. It doesn't really matter for me what the table is, but this is just a measurements table where we take length and width and we convert that into a measurement. And I have a different video where I set up this table for primarily like interior designers. So what can we do in Airtable? Well, what we can do in Airtable is we can say a new or updated record, probably with 2 automations. So we would say when a record is created or when a record matches conditions. And then what can we do in Google Sheets is honestly the biggest question for if you really want to stick in Airtable. So the option here is append row with Google Sheets. That's the only action. And if you aren't familiar with automations in general, you need to have a trigger and then you need to have actions. There can only be one trigger per automation or typically, and then you can have multiple actions. So let's see what we have here. So if I connect this to my account, I connect then a spreadsheet. So I'm going to pick one of these on a different screen because I'm not sure if there's anything that I can or cannot share. But basically what this is going to do, this is not going to be a great solution because it's going to append another row. If it was update a row, so I'll actually just pick one of these. So we will go with this tracking sheet. If we just wanted to update a row in one of these worksheets, so we will say sales data, we could choose the row, choose what all we want to update or what we want to append. But if you know the word append is just going to add to the bottom of the spreadsheet, and we don't want to do that. So for that reason, I would not use Airtable. Now what I would highly recommend using, and I use with nearly right now, I would say 98% of my clients, if they use automation, maybe one person uses Integromat, but nearly everybody uses Airtable and Zapier. So Zapier is like the simplest way to go for this. And what I wanted to show you first was the connections for Google Sheets. So natively, Airtable has that one automation, just append a row in a Google Sheet. Now, if you look up, what I just do is Google Sheets Zapier. What they have here are a ton of different integrations. So this is everything you do. I'm not going to go through all of these, but in general, I really like to work with 2. I really like to work with find or create row, and then update spreadsheet row. There's also just create spreadsheet row. All right, those are the 2. So what I do here is I go and add a new Zap. So you could press this and connect to Zapier. But what I would do is I would just go start with Zapier, and this is going to be the Zap. So if you want to make this really simple, then we would just go straight into Airtable and say new or updated record. If you want, also, I'll show you how to do this all in one Zap. It might not be the most efficient Zap, but we can talk about that later. If you want to split it into 2, you could also do that. So here in Airtable, I'm going to connect my Airtable to this one, which is it's this account. So for each account that you want to connect it to, no matter the workspaces, you have to connect it for each account. And I'm going to say this is going to be in the measurement tracking system. So I got that from the name of the base, which is up here, measurement tracking system. And then I want to add a table, and it's going to be the measurements table. Now this is important. So which timestamp field should this Zap use to check for updates? And this is required. Note. So we need to have in here what exactly gets updated and then it sends over. So if you just go add a new field, so I'm going to right click on this and then insert a field to the left, type in here to find the field type modified, last modified time. That's fine right now. So I just created that, and what you can choose here is you can choose any field in here gets updated and then update it in the Google Sheet, or just specific fields. So I just want to say all fields, but you could come in here and choose specific fields that if those get updated, then you trigger the Zap. And now last modified shows up. Say you already came in here and chose last modified, then you add a new field and it doesn't show up. You would just want to hit load more until it does. Then you hit continue, and that should be good for the trigger. Now what you want to go do is hit continue, and then we want to go into Google Sheets. So these are all of my options: create a spreadsheet row, update a spreadsheet row, delete a spreadsheet row, create spreadsheet column, look up spreadsheet row, all of this stuff. So what I want to do is look up spreadsheet row. So typically how I run Zaps like this is if you just want to do it all in one Zap, a new or updated record in Airtable is going to find or create a row in Google Sheets, and then we just always add one that just updates it. So that makes it really simple if you just want to have it all in one. Again, it might not be the most efficient Zap, but it works great. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull over this Google Sheet that I just started, which doesn't have anything here at the top, but what we can do is say ID, and we would actually, yeah, this is perfect. So we're going to start off somewhere. What I would highly recommend in here is having a field called record ID, having another field called the ID, which is going to be this first field in Airtable. Then we can say length and width and SQFT for square foot, and I always type that. All right, so we have generally what fields we need to have. So we just want to bring in length, width. I could bring any other fields, but just to show you these examples, this is all I'm going to do for now. And then I'm going to go back over to Zapier. So these are the headers. And what I want to do is I want to first find or look up a spreadsheet row. So I want to look up a spreadsheet row in this account. And I want to choose my drive. And then the spreadsheet. If you, for whatever reason, can't find the spreadsheet that you're looking for, what you can do is you can come in here to the URL that's visible right here. Copy everything after the D / and before the / edit. And you can come in here and paste it right there. And it should come up. If you can't find it, then you should just be able to press enter. Or you can go over to custom and then press that and then use that. The worksheet, I should only have one worksheet in here. So this is an example. If it doesn't show up, which I've had this problem happen so many times with Google Sheets, you would just enter it like that. Lookup column. So this is one of the most important parts here. This is really crucial if you don't want to have multiple records or rows in the Google Sheet created every time you update something. So for example, you create this record once, it sends it over to Google Sheets, and then when you update it, you don't want it to add a new record that says 15, and then there's the first one says 1015. You just want it to update that one to say 1515. All right, so that's why we have this record ID. So what makes every Airtable very unique is a Airtable record ID. An Airtable record ID is visible if you were to expand the record in the browser, you could see it in the URL. But if you come in here and copy the record URL, I'll show it to you right here. So you can see it says REC and has a bunch of random stuff. Another way of seeing this is if you add a field to the right anywhere in here and you make it a formula, and then you type record ID, click that, there's your record ID of each field. So now let's go back to Zapier. And so we have new or updated record in Airtable. Look up a spreadsheet row by the lookup column, and the lookup value is going to be the record ID of our record that was in the trigger. So to add that, you just press in here, and this gives you all of the fields from the trigger. And something to note is I did add this field right here, but I called it rec ID. Zapier is automatically going to give you the record ID of the trigger record, so you don't have to add it in here as a formula. You'll just have access to it. So there's the record ID. Now if I keep on scrolling down, that's an interesting ID that I don't know that I've seen. All right, so supporting lookup column. All right, so let us know which column you want to search by with the value below. We'll grab the latest matching record and give you all of its values. Sweet. Search from the bottom up. This isn't going to matter because there will only ever be one record attached to this. And then one thing that I don't really like about this is they put this checkbox deceivingly after this yes, no option. But this is actually going to go away once I check this box. And then we're going to have to remove that field. So I checked this box because I want it to create that record if it does not exist. So it's gone from, what was it, lookup to find or create row in Google Sheets. So I want to say it's going to be this record ID, and the ID is our field ID because it's the field named ID. And it just does that every time you name it field ID. The length is going to be our length field. The width is going to be our width field. So again, I'm just clicking here and pulling in information from the trigger. And then for this one, I don't want to try to find it, so I'm just going to type in square feet, and it's going to pull it up right there. So that is perfect. Let's test that and review it before continuing. You can see perfect, it added it right there. So I love that, and that's perfect. Now, what happens when something is updated? So if I now retest that trigger, because I did update it since testing the Zap. So if I come in here to test trigger and I click load more, you should have these, and I also added the 15 in there. So you'll see right now it says 7, 10, 15, 150. So I tested that, and I think I picked the right record because the one at the top was probably the most recently updated one. But now let's test this. So important thing to note is on the first one, we created a record or created a row in the Google Sheet. And on this one, we should find one if I click the right record. So you can see on the first go around, when we first tested that a minute ago, the Zap data was false, which means it created a row. So let's test this again. And so it looks like it created another row because it didn't find that one. So here we have the ID is 6. So let's go retest that again. Actually, we can just test it. So this time we'll just test with that same data. So that time it said again, Zap data was found was false. So that means it created that second row. But if I test that again, then it's going to say Zap data was found was true. So it didn't create one, it just returned it. But what would have happened had it been updated? So let's go back to where the ID was 6. And let's go update that to 20 and 300,000. So now let's go back here, newer updated record, and let's retest this. So we'll pull on record G now, which should be the same exact one. And then let's go test this. So you'll see in here it says 10, 15, 15, 15 for those lengths and widths. Retest this. Zap data was found was true, but it didn't update. So the next logical step that we need to add in here is if it found a record, if it found a row in the Google Sheet, then it needs to update. So what you can add in here is a filter to say only continue if, and I should have explained that better. So to add a filter in here for the next step, you would say the plus sign over on the right, you'll add a filter. And then in the filter, we're going to say that the Zap data was found was true. So this contains true. This is great. Your Zap would have continued. And then we can add another step in here where it says Google Sheets So I can just change this to Google Sheets. So where Google Sheets will update the row. So where it says update spreadsheet row. And we're going to use the same account. And if you don't have any accounts connected, it should be pretty straightforward to just sign into your Google account. Now we just go through the same steps of the Google Drive, tutorial, worksheet, the row. Now this is important. So the row, what we would use here is we would just pull it from the row here. So for row, it's entering like 3 or 2. So how I would know which row is I would come in here to step 2. So if you click on row, click on custom, you get information from the previous steps. Click on 2 to pull in information from the Google Sheet. And then here you can see row 3. So here for row 3, I don't really need to update the record ID because we already found the record ID. But I would update all fields if possible. The ID also will not change. I know it won't change because it's a formulated field, but I still am on the fence of updating everything possible. Length, width, so width, and then SQFT. Sweet. So now I can hit continue. And now we can see in here, these are all, it's still 10, 15, 15, 15 for those lengths and widths. Test this, and then bam, you can see it live. It changed it and updated it. So I typically wouldn't even have this step right here. I think it just adds too many steps here. I think it might actually count as a run in Zapier. I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that. But I would typically just delete this and then run it. Now, depending on your payment plan in Zapier, so Zapier pricing, this is going to have different update times for you. So you can see which one I pay for. I'm on professional, and so I get a 2-minute update time. If you are on the one that 95% of my clients are on, you're on the $19.99 one, and you get 20 zaps, and you get 15-minute update time. So basically what that means is Zapier is going to be checking this Airtable table every 15 minutes for updates and then updating. So it's not going to be real time, but it's pretty good. So let's add a few. We can actually just duplicate a few of these to show how quickly they come over. Within the next 10 minutes, within the next 2 minutes, all of these they should all be over there. So if I enter enough of these, it's probably just going to add all of them all at the same time in that same run. But if you are testing this and you want to get ahead of the game, what you can do is come over to Zapier, and I'm just going to be checking this every now and then in case it does it while I'm trying to do this for you. I feel like I don't want to wait the 15 minutes. I want to make sure that this is working. And actually, let's go ahead and change 6 and 7. So this is going to be 30. This is going to be 1.2, and this is going to be 4. Okay, sweet. So that still hasn't updated. So if you want to go test this out, so we both added records and we are updating records. So let's go test this out. So you can come in here to your Zap. And again, I didn't name it, unfortunately. So here you just hit run, and then it should go do all this for you. So you can manually run it, and you can see it updated. Now everything that we just added should be coming in here just like it is. So that's amazing. That looks perfect. And now whenever we create records in that table or update records in that table, this one Zap is going to take care of it. And I think that is perfect for most of the use cases. You could split up this automation into 2. What I would just suggest is after creating the row, bring that row ID back into Airtable. But this is a simple enough automation that most people should be able to implement this pretty fast. So if you have any questions about this, throw them in the comments section. But I hope you gain value out of this. This is essentially a one-way sync. So if you update things in Airtable, it's not going to update it in the Google Sheet, but at least it's not going to create multiple records. So if you gain value out of this video and you think you might gain value out of more of my videos, and you also use Google Calendar, well, what I have here in the end screen right here is a video on how exactly to sync your Airtable and your Google Calendar. So one thing I didn't go into is if you have date fields, for example, this last modified, or most likely a legit date field that is not calculated, at least based on modification, you can sync this date into your Google Calendar with data from the Airtable. So if you're interested in learning about how you can do that and implement that into your business or your personal life, then go ahead and click on the video on the end screen and go watch how to integrate Airtable and Google Calendar. Again, I hope you gained value in this video on how to integrate Airtable and Google Sheets. Go click the video on the end screen right there and learn all about how to seamlessly integrate Airtable and Google Calendar. I'll see you in the next one.